I don't like PowerPoint. There's far too much of it. So I'm doing a video, so I have to remember to look at it so I talk about the right things. There's also a 3D bit later. If someone wants to take some free glasses away, there's a limited number, no charge. Because one of my games uses the Red Blue 3D, which doesn't work for everybody. Anyway, I've done about 20 games. This is my 10th year, oddly enough. Nearly. This is my latest one. This is a sort of a fusion between Lemmings, Confusion, and, I don't know, Pac-Mania. So it's basically an isometric 3D game where you have to get the characters out of the maze, either by building away from them or clearing away from them. I dreamt it originally. I normally dream video games, a bit sad really, but then I'm slightly obsessed by it, apparently. I have about 4 in progress that I haven't finished yet. This one I left unfinished for a while, in the back pocket. Graphics are important. You keep them simple to make it look appealing. So the ones on the left are slightly frightening to me. So I've simplified on the right because it's all isometric. I use that for the adversary called a voxel. Now, a voxel is a 3D pixel. So they're voxel art rather than pixel art, if you like. It looks like this. These little characters, you have to get them without falling down the hole. You match the fruit up. The ones with the padlocks on them are locked in position. And you've got a little voxel there. And you've got a bridge to help them get over. So I'm demonstrating this on my stand if anybody wants to have a look. It's original. It's not a copy of anything else. It's written in BBC Basic. It runs about 30 frames a second. People can steal code from it. They can make their own levels if they like, because the levels are in a plain text file and easy to understand. That part's easy to understand. I'm happy for people to steal code from me as well, because I like to teach people how it works. Anyway, back to this lot. So here's some of the games which I've done. I've got things like a 3D space games done with kit-bashed plastic models that I photographed, made out of plastic bottles and things. I've got 3D rendered things I've done in Blender. A car game inspired by the 1980s TV show called Knight Rider, hence the turbo boost feature in the game. As well as puzzle games that's on the Epic or whatever it's called that they sell. That's the Haunted Tower Hotel, which seemed to be inspired by the Arness Manor Hotel. But don't tell them, because that's a very peculiar building that we did the Southwest show in. So I've done about 20 games in total. There are free and paid for games. My first game I did 10 years ago is on RISC OS Direct, which you can get without paying for it, called Overlord. I do a development kit, which helps people to write their own software. So it gives that my games have a common engine behind them, which makes it very easy to develop things quickly. And I have a virtual sound chip, which is like the BBC Micro chip or the Commodore SID chip, things like that. So yeah, that's included, but the sound chip is freely available. So you can do envelope commands and sound commands, except you've got more waveforms and samples and reverbs and so on. So the idea is that makes it very easy for me to develop things, which is why I've done 20 in about 2 a year on average. In 2023, I had my 3D car game, which we'll see a clip of in a little bit, and a maze game called Amazing, which is a bit like Berserk or those sort of things, but it's done with a 2.5D, if you can imagine what that's like. So you can go behind objects, but it's not a true 3D. If it was the real world, you'd be standing diagonally, falling over. So it doesn't make any sense if you think too hard about it, but it looks quite nice. And Time Run in 2023, which is a Space Invader thing, but a gimmick where you have to get rid of all the aliens or get to the top within a time limit before a time bomb goes off. So it gives you an incentive to make progress. I'm not aware of that gimmick elsewhere, but that's what I did. And there's a BBC Micro version of that included in it. So now this, for 2024, I've released Wizard Lore, which you can see running on my stand, which is based on Imogen. So you had to escape a cave and get to the very top. You can levitate blocks and you can zap lightning and things like that. Set fire to things, if I remember rightly. So that's what I produced. And Escape to the Light became Lightgate, which has multiple modes of play. So you could have conversations, RPG-like, play mini games, which are more 8-bit, or go into different full 3D or 2.5D. So it's reasonably elaborate. Again, all written in BBC Basic or plagiarizable, but it's more like about 4 games in one. So I released that 1 year ago today. So I think it goes into 3D Turbo Boost now, so we can see a bit of that. I wanted to do a car game, but someone said they were going to write one, so I didn't for 2 years. I gave them 2 years. They didn't do it in 2 years, so I wrote one. These are 3 models from Turbo Squid that I modified, and here you're playing against the computer. So again, written in BBC Basic. So this is kind of like renders a road into the distance, or you've got a turbo boost there, jumping over the bus. You have a limited number available, 4 turbo boosts and 4 whatever it is, pursuit modes. I can't remember what they're called. So you can basically go really quick, and so you have to use that strategically. The computer is playing back one of my plays, which I've recorded, which is then modifying. And so the trees are procedurally generated, which basically means you have a pseudo-random number function, and you can design your own. They're quite simple, standard algorithms. You give it a common seed or start point, and it produces the same sequence. So the road, however, is described by a little program that says go left, go right, put a bus in it, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's quite good fun. And you can play it. It's also my only 2-player game that I've done. So you can play against somebody else. And in case of my daughter, watch them win, which is fine, because children are supposed to be better than me at this. And generally are. But yeah, so this proceeds through to the end. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to win, because you shouldn't always win. So I think it may choose, when it accelerates, the speedometer goes to maximum all of a sudden. And I'm pretty sure that at this point, the race leader's on the top, the computer's winning. It's very near the end now, and I'm going to lose. And there we go. You've got to be dealing with losing. I have no problem with losing at all. So this is Blender, which is a brilliant free program. I just got my 3D models. I moved the camera, rendered in different positions to get all the positions for the cars, capture them as an image or a sprite, and then put them in the game. And that's because I was doing it like Lotus type games, that kind of feel, rather than trying to make it look very flash. This one's amazing. Maybe it's not amazing, but it's got amazing in it. It's got an implausible B-movie plot where it's created an organism, this professor has, and he gets eaten by the organism, and he creates an energy beam, which someone compared to a 1980s TV show called Automan, apparently, which you may or may not remember, because it only ran for 13 episodes. They're very delighted about this comparison, since they were a fan. Anyway, this is a 2.5D game, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Once I click on the level, eventually. Right, so you get like a summary. You've got to get enough chemicals to kill this organism, which is taking over the world, and go from there. So you've got this chap. So what I was trying to do here was to take an 8-bit graphic, like you have in a television or whatever, and actually make it look modern. And I'll show you how I did that in a minute. Because some things are drawn from scratch, like the maze and the robots here, right? But this was taken from a site called Pixabay. Pixabay has free assets that you can use. This reminds me of the Ready Black adverts, if anyone remembers those. It's sort of glowing red. Didn't fancy that. So what I do, when I took the video clip, you can download them. They're free for use, so you don't have to give attribution, but you can if you like, which I tend to do. I ran a program called FFmpeg, also free, which I think might be available for RISC OS, if I remember rightly. And it can, I then said, take 15 frames a second from the video. So I extract the frames into files. This gives me the images to start playing with. Because what I do is I have to, it's a bit laborious, I have to basically edit the images to give them the right look. Because I didn't want this sort of pink glowing field wandering around everywhere. But someone didn't buy one of my games once because the cover was pink. Which is a shame, there's nothing wrong with pink, is there? No, but they weren't happy with it. Anyway, I wanted it more like a cyan glow to evoke this nostalgic feeling, which you tend to hopefully get with some of my stuff, because if you're independent, and I'll show you, there are big independent games around the world that sell millions, which look like they should have been released in 1984, but more on that later. So this is busily extracting the frames. You can see this is what we call filler. So when you're trying to do a talk, you put things in that take time so that you have enough time to do everything. The other thing that's lovely about a video is you can do live action and you're not having death by PowerPoint. So now I've got the frames out, right, of which there are a large number. I can't remember how many there were. So I had to identify a loop, and I used a program which I've no idea where it came from. I think it's not malware, it's useful, and it's called Image Patch, and it basically processes batches of images for me. One of my games is called Star Mine, where I shot plastic models in different positions. I had hundreds of photographs to process, and this was quite a useful tool to go and resize them all for me. Once these are being resized and processed, I turn them into sprite files and run them on RISC OS, which is beautiful and easy and nice. But it means, see, what I've done on another one of my games called Scuba Hunter, which is an underwater version of Repton, basically, where you collect diamonds as a diver under the sea, is I found a diving instruction video and I drew over the top with the diver to get a realistic motion. So I basically did what they call rotoscoping, right, just for a few frames, and I then colored and created the character. So that's one way of achieving a walk cycle. In this instance, I found the video by chance, really liked the look of it, and thought it would work well in this game because you're supposed to be an energy being, and you sort of look like you're an energy being in this. So I'm going through and showing the images that I'm processing. So I've reduced the size down, and I think I changed the color, and I rebuild the glowing field around it so it's not quite so big, and I use two different colors. I use an ancient program on the PC called Paint Pro, which is free. Well, kind of free because the company doesn't exist anymore. It costs £8 off Amazon, and it comes with the option of sending my registration card in. And it doesn't have any copy protection on it. But it's basically very much like Photoshop. So here I've rebuilt the image, I've reduced all that glow, which was a bit excessive, and now I've got the look I want. And all I had to do is to make it run the other way, of course, is to flip it into mirror image. So then you've got a somewhat lower resolution and slower than in the game, but nonetheless a nice running motion. And this is, how you basically do things when you haven't got any time, any budget. And you're trying to do 2 games a year rather than a game every 2 years, like most of these indie developers like to do. But then I've got more ideas than I have time to write, fortunately. This one is the time gimmick that I mentioned. So this was released tail end of 2023, and basically you can time jump runways. The nice thing about this was the aliens fly in formation. So I have an animation language which I wrote using single characters that enabled me to describe a figure of 8 motion, basically. So things like that. So you've got Dr. Spock, Death Vader, Arcadian, Star Striker. Some fun names in there. So I think you can also define your own keys or use joystick on this. Okay, most of my games have a common control form, so I reuse code between them. So I've then got, I think in this game, 6 levels, starting with level 1. It does a bit of play. So you can see this thing is flying across and then down sweeping, and that's controlled by a program. A power-up appeared, and you've got to get to the top of the screen. Your distance is shown top right, and you've got 167 seconds or thereabouts to complete it. So, yeah, you get these large aliens to shoot at. The animation code is on the left of your screen. You can see little arrows and slashes, and that I just run that as a small program. It's a very simple programming language within a program, which I find a general useful thing to do. And on the right, you've got letters which describe the formation flying pattern and a number which describes the alien. The sprites are 4 times as big as the letter, so they cover 4 characters, and that lets me hide control codes for the aliens inside the map. And that, again, is editable, should someone ever desire to create their own. But this is fully open, fully hackable, fully take it and make your own software, and I really don't mind because I want people to have fun, and I'm sure people would, I wouldn't mind if someone created something new and it was very similar to one of mine. I wouldn't say, that's brilliant. Thank you for creating something new. We need more stuff. And that's what I'm doing. You see on the left, I've got my library. I'm setting properties and I'm setting, other things in here. It means that the code is very simple and I'm running on a common engine. Now, when I was 15 years old, I wrote a BBC Micro version of this, but just as a Space Invader thing. This is available on bbcmicro.co.uk, or you just run your own emulator. So I wrote that a long time ago now. It has a similar look to the game. Time Zone 1. There we are. So this is not vertically scrolling. I think that's why I called it version 3. And so the way I did this was I drew something with a text cursor using a user-defined graphic, and then I went to the graphics cursor and drew some color over it with another user-defined graphic. This is because I didn't have a decent sprite routine to hand. And this is basically, it's quite simple. You've got to shoot them within the time limit, and you have other things to get in the way, which I borrowed and incorporated into the new version on RISC OS. This is actually also distributed with the RISC OS version, so people can play it on the emulator on RISC OS if they choose to. Time Zone 2. There are 10 in total, I think. So, and it won't go all the way through, but I've got this blocking character, and that exists, except it blocks your ship, and you can't destroy it. That's actually in the new version. If you get hit too many times, your ship dissolves in this version. And if the time bomb goes off, then it flashes at you. And yes, that's game over. So, other things I've been thinking about, I always have lots of ideas. I have a private detective game I want to write called Hugh Bowman, which is come from Lou Archer. Lou Archer is actually a detective in books, so I changed it to Hugh Bowman. Private investigator. Starmine 2, because Starmine, which is my kit bashed full 3D game, is on the PC and as well on Linux, and it has more features. I wanted to bring that back to RISC OS. It has lockable bits of the maze with floating keys and other stuff. So I wanted to bring that back and have a new version with improved 3D on it as well, since I've got better at it over time. So I've got my little video mark that tells me I'm going to change screen, which I believe they did something on telly years ago, because I used to watch that with some interest, so that I know something's coming up. So eventually it will change. There we go. Oh yes, so this comes back to Light Gate, which I did 1 year ago, right? That I went into a charity shop. I was thinking of playing the sound, but I don't think I will. You can find it on my website. I went to a charity shop and I found a tape, and on this tape there were some quite spooky sounds that sounded like something from the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. My friend that was concerned it might possibly be haunted. More on that. So if you want to hear it, some of it sounds just daft, but some of it sounds quite frightening, like heavy footsteps and grating and sinister sounds and theremins and things. I have no idea what it is. I've not found any attribution, no reference to it. It's sat in presumably someone's collection for years. But I released it a year ago, and it's a real thing. I didn't make it up, honestly. And if you hear it, you'll know that it's not. Whilst I create things, I haven't got some of the facilities. I don't have tablas and things like that. It's definitely 1960s if you hear it. Anyway, as I mentioned, multiple modes of play. So like the Amazing game, on which it is used as a donor. The way I do my games, I take a previous one, delete a load of code, and write some new code in it. Because that way I have some chance of getting things to work. And I had already got an update for my development kit, which is this combat mode, which I mentioned. And I have the 8-bit minigames was the intention, which is what I've got in. I've got about 3 different kinds of minigames in it. So come to my stand if you want to see what that's like. Because these slides were written before I completely finished it at 4 in the morning. For 3 days, I was up from midnight and then went on into a ridiculous hour to try and get it done. That's because there are all these multiple modes of play. If I just done one, I wouldn't have had a problem. But foolishly, I thought, it won't be that hard. It won't take that long to write. And how many times have I said that in the last 20 years? You'd think by now I actually would have learned that when I think something is easy, it really isn't. Now, this is EMI tape, which lasts forever, but I'm sorry, it has whale oil in it probably, which is not nice, but it probably does, because it seems to last forever. One of these tapes was some children learning French, right, apparently, and one of them was this. So I took this by my friend. and he was generally very concerned about it. Essentially, right? He doesn't look like that, by the way. I didn't want to, caricature him because that could be insulting. And you say, well, it sounds like possibly this might be a bit haunted, essentially, and it really does if you hear some of it. It really does. So we played it to his cat to see if it reacted, but no, it didn't. So we assume it's safe. It just wanted food, which cats generally do. I saw actually, like, you have these buttons for dogs, right? And the dog can press the button saying play now, play later. Well, I saw one with a cat and it said treat now. Because cats like food. I've got one, I should know. Anyway, this is my tape recorder, right, which is about 1962. They were common in schools. It's got a little valve running. And if you listen on my website, you will hear the sinister sounds running. And I've got a YouTube series with the development of Lightgate, or Escape from the Light, as it was code-named. And this video series, I actually play the tape at the end, at least most of it. Because, it was useful to find some inspiration. If you want to create something, you need two things: constraints and something that really grabs you. Because if you're not that interested, you won't. Speaking of ideas, this is Milton Keynes at night to make it look better. It looks better at night when the lights are glowing. And this is a National Sci-Fi Museum, right? And a retro arcade called the Pixel Bunker. Okay? So I went there with my daughter to film a video, also on YouTube. So you can see it. There is actually, I should mention, the Northwest Computer Museum here today. And they've got some, not only like Atoms and old Acorn kit, they've got arcade machines as well. Really worth going along and seeing them. Now this has, based on the original molds, the next generation Enterprise. Most of it. It seems to be undergoing a refit at the moment. Behind me was some TIE fighters and Gremlin and things. So we have the arcade here. I went to look for video games. You've got, Playmobil figure there. Orville seems to feature somewhere, apparently. And, one of the things is on the top, on the shelf. Yeah, they got an Orville, presumably not the Orville, I hope. There probably isn't the Orville. They normally have three, don't they? Or several. Anyway, I'm not sure which one this is, but the glowing effects on the CRTs I used in Lightgate to create a thematic idea, to give it a lo-fi feel, but to give it something visually appealing. Because CRTs are actually very attractive things, in my opinion. A bit heavy, but very nice. Now, my free game I have available through the Pling Store and on RISC OS Direct is a clone of this game. This game, however, I found was harder than mine, apparently, because I didn't do that well at it. I did better at Galaxians, I think. But this one I just died regularly, apparently. So anyway, it's a really sort of, again, these people coming up with fundamentally new ideas. And the other thing I was taking as inspiration was some modern games. So Little Nightmares is a sinister sideways scroller, probably more sinister than anything I would make, because I'm a gentle sort of soul, really. But I think it's quite cool if you like something that's a bit dark occasionally. But this game was not released in 1984. It was released in 2015 by an independent developer. My daughter's a big fan. They've had millions of sales of this game. And it shows that is actually a heart. You play that heart in this scene, and that's the little white dots you fight against. And this is running on some high-end PlayStation or something. But he wrote it, simply, it has these RPG features. But yeah, pixel art and things which are just about being fun exist and are popular. It's not all about being photorealistic and everything else. And that gives people like me a bit of a chance. Otherwise, children seem to generally find this stuff interesting. Now, there's a quick look with the 3D Moonbase attack, where I built the models and photographed them in 3D. Now, I noticed there wasn't a clamour of people running for free glasses. I can't guarantee they won't do something funny to your eyes, so I can't necessarily blame you. But if anybody does want one, you can still have a free one anyway. So you subtract the blue, subtract the red, and I combine them together into a 3D image. You have to choose a focus location extremely carefully, I should say. And then if you have one of these on, that would look 3D. If you don't, it just looks like it's something wrong with the projector, and it's not showing the picture properly. Anyway, so one last thing then before we finish, we can have a look at 3D Moon. That's tip mode 7, which I'm quite fond of actually. You can see the game running in normal mode. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers a game on the BBC Micro called Cylon Attack, but that is basically what this is. So when I was doing things with these anaglyphs, these 3D images, I didn't want to take, like in Star Mine, I've got like loads of different angles on the spaceships. I didn't want to do that because I'd have a lot of work. It took me ages to do even one picture. So I had to have things so you couldn't fly into them. They came towards you, and that's Cylon attack. So that was the inspiration. So you've got, I think these objects are made from bits of junk. That's made from a silicon gun. That's made from a bent bit of plastic. So literally a silicon gun, you get like a little pointy bit on the front. Well, I've chopped it off, and I've basically painted it and stuck some wings on it, and voila, we've got the Liberator, whatever it is, or a star wing. So that basically, they say you can't fly away from the Earth and Moon's force field, you're in low orbit, and you shoot at them and get power-ups. They shoot at you. It's not a very intelligent game, basically. But, I always liked Cylon Attack. It's one of my favourite BBC micro games. So anyway, eventually I think I might possibly win this or die. Can't remember which for a minute. So we'll see. Oh, you got the Elite Radar on the top. Yes, I borrowed the design, as these people know vaguely what it was supposed to do. I've really run out of shields, so I probably die on that game. But then cunningly, by magic of editing, which you probably wouldn't have noticed that, where it goes to another play. Actually did because it spun around, but anyway. So eventually, I think I've got one ship left, or a few. I shoot it meaningfully. Eventually, I think I'm obviously waiting for my chance to get good aim. Come on, there we go. Now we have to go and prepare for a moon landing, which is made in air drying clay and a bit of plasticine and a bit of packing material. But that's actually for my daughter had a set of Heelys. I don't know if you know these things. They've got like roller skates on them, on them like shoes. That's a bit of packing material. On the back it says Heelys, copyright America or something. And I painted it, stuck it on the air drying clay. I used warding files to scrape away and create shape various round objects to create craters. And I then land my spaceship in it by superimposing it, of course. The spaceship is based on a snow speeder from Star Wars. So yeah, there we go. I suspect it goes into 3D in a moment, so it won't give you a headache because you haven't got one of these, unless you want one. I suspect it will do it in a minute because I'm going to die now, aren't I? Because this is basically a copy of the YouTube video on my website. But it saves me writing lots of slides. And I think somebody called me up 2 days ago saying, "Hey, do you want to do a talk on Saturday?" Okay. I don't want to stand here in front and just bring boxes up in front of me and say, "Look, this is one of my games." I'd rather show you what they look like, run the video. Yeah, I died. It plays some sad piano music there, if anybody cares about that. My games all feature lots of original music because I do music in my spare time. I have a little music studio. And so I also sell a little bit of music as well. Although I tend to sell more video games. Anyway, this is now in 3D. As you can see, there's nothing wrong with the video projector. This is what it's supposed to look like. And so basically it then runs the same thing in 3D, which we're now going to watch gently until it reaches the end in about 2 minutes or so. So had you got 3D glasses on, your eyes will receive a different picture for each image, creating an illusion of depth. But it doesn't work for everybody. But it might work for you if you try it. And some parts I've had to calculate and draw the image more than once. So maybe one day I'll try something with a headset. But I don't know. That sounds expensive, and my budget is near zero. So unless there's like a back of a lorry, someone turns up with a load of headsets for free for me, it's not very likely. Yeah, I've done 20 games in total. The mixtures of techniques, from puzzles to this sort of thing. And I say I'm going to do this sort of like detective game, possibly, in the near future. I'm doubtless going to die in a minute, or something. I think I'll land on the surface of the moon. But yeah, Cylon Attack never made any sense to me because it's all flat. So I thought, why can't the ship fly in the screen? But this did make some sense because the moon's below you. So there is at least some sense of logic to it. But yeah, so one more ship to go. Now they'll land in 3D on the moon. I think this time I succeed and failed the previous time. But yeah, people find this quite fun, believe it or not. It's mindless therapy. The game I'm releasing today is therapy, but with three-dimensional blocks. So yeah, now we've got a three-dimensional version of the moon, which probably looks quite painful. Anyway, I managed to land successfully in this instance, which is really hard to see when you've got two images in different colours, but it is actually in the right place. But yeah, that's basically model of the old docking sequences you used to have in the 8-bit games, where the spaceship had to land on top of the other one. So this is often based on something, and there's a fanfare when you land. Anyway, for some reason or other, I think I've included the credits on here, because that's nice. I should give credit to my friend Simon Very from university I've known for 30 years because he contributes music. And he rings me up with crazy ideas. Like he rang me up the other day saying, hey, I've got a great idea for a video game. And that related to a novel way of having a raster display. It's hard to describe it. One of his ideas was having like universes hidden behind objects. I thought, okay. So they're sometimes quite strange, but some of his ideas are brilliant. That was running on a RISC OS Venom. I've got a Roland Juno 6 I love using. I'll never take to a show since it weighs far too much and it's huge because it's 40 years old this year. But yeah, so everything I have is original music. And I love people to steal everything that I make and have fun with it as much as possible. Oh, it's questions and answers now. The video reached the end in a minute. Does anyone have any questions? Or have I either stunned you into silence or frightened you? Well, that was frightening. It wasn't a request, Are there any questions? If there aren't any questions, that's okay. You just approach people and see if they speak to you. I've got one question there.
Can you give us any advanced intel into what you've got planned for the London show?
I have several possibilities. It depends how they go. So I have this notion, I did a talk on it previously, which was Sim's crazy idea that he rang up with, where you've got a raster display that runs quicker and gives you less detail, or slower gives you more detail, so you're like a broken robot on a planet. So I did that talk, it might be on YouTube, I did that to Wakefield, I think, previously. There's that one's a possibility. Depending if that one's proving a problem, I might do the detective game I mentioned, where you can either fight criminals. It's like 1940s style, with your little hat on. That's what I've got imagined. And you might have to go and look into drawers and search for clues. That's one possibility. If that's not going too well, the third possibility that I've got is to take StarMine and update it. If that's not going too well, what I think I might do is I might do a two-dimensional game. So the thing is, I don't know yet, but I've got about 4 ideas. And it depends how it goes. If it's going badly, I'll change gear. Like Wizard Law, I wrote in about 2 weeks. I had the idea in the car, and I wrote it in 2 weeks. That's part of the reason why it's just the wizard. There's no other characters in it, because it was I don't have time to do anything. So I hope that helps, but that's it. They're all shy. Or it's lunchtime.
It might be a bit of a noob question, but you talked about image files and turning them into sprites.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to do that. How do you do that?
So on RISC OS, you've got a program called Change FSI. If you run Change FSI, you can give it, I think, a PNG, a bitmap, possibly a JPEG, and then choose. You have to be a bit careful. I say ignore. You can come onto my stand and I'll show you. You choose ignore original image scale, I think, or size, and then it will come up right. Otherwise, I think it was coming up the wrong size. But Change FSI will do it. And that's how it works. You'll find it in the utilities folder on RISC OS. I'm happy people to email me asking me questions like that. I don't, and I should ask them. As long as the email works. What's the question? Any other questions? Lunchtime. Lunchtime. Possible. Sorry? No. Right. Well, thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time and attention. And hope you enjoy the rest of the show. But do come over and say hello if you have time.